Yes.
Okay. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of TalkX, where we delve into the world of technical documentation. I'm your host Manish, working as a technical writer at Razorpay with a keen interest in technology and innovation. In last episode of TalkX, we discussed about influence of AI and in the field of technical documentation, where we spoke about AI and how AI is changing the Razorpay docs. I must say it was a very interesting session. Got to know a lot of insights about AI. And moving on, today we will be discussing about measuring docs effectiveness and quality. In essence, measuring doc effectiveness and quality isn't just about assessing the content, it's strategic effort to enhance user experience, reduce friction, and optimize overall operational efficiency. Today we have an exceptional panel of experts joining us. I would like to welcome Nibu Thomas. Nibu is the Director of Information Development at Podfix and has over 20 years of experience in the field of technical writing and documentation and over 30 years of experience overall. Nibu has a keen eye for problem solving. He leads, mentors, and trains teams advocating for better communication. A warm welcome to Nibu.
Thank you.
Joining in our next panelist is Anu Singh, a principal of EIS and analytics at Pfizer, who has 20 plus years of experience in content strategy, operations, and development. Her expertise in communication skills shine in tech communication forums. She is passionate about learning diverse cultures and technology. Welcome, Anu. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And our next panelist is Ashish Gupta, who works as a senior content program manager at Microsoft, a seasoned professional with more than 16 years of expertise in content strategy, authoring, operations, who excels in the field of technical publications. Ashish is a passionate advocate for customer experience and quality, holds a chemical engineering degree from IIT Bombay. Welcome, Ashish. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for
Must
having
say
me.
we have a great set of panelists guys today, so it's gonna be a very interesting session. Without further ado, let's dive into our first set of questions. So my first question is to Nibu. Nibu, what does effective documentation mean to you?
Okay, I touched about this when I spoke um, several months back. I think it was at Razorpay. So, the what is the objective of documentation, right? Uh, Very often we get so caught up in measurements that we don't know what is it that we should measure, right? So when you're looking at effectiveness of documentation, for me, it's actually a very simple answer. Was the product used? Right? Your objective is not to have your content read. If you can get your users to use your product, in a seamless way, I think that is a better, that is the most effective document, right? Even if it does not exist, even if it is a small piece of text that you have managed to put inside a product, if you are able to give the information at the right time, without the user having to search for it, or if they're searching for it, they're able to find it quickly. So in short, what is the intent of this documentation that you're creating? If that intent is met, then it is effective.
And how, like, what are the metrics that define high quality documentation to you, Nibu?
Okay. So metrics, again, we'll have to go back to that answer, right? So uh, if your intent is for the product to be used, then it's just a yes or no answer. Have they used it or have they not used it, right? Were they able to use it smoothly or did they face issues? If they faced issues, were they able to overcome the issues by themselves, or did they have to reach out to support or find some other solution? Sometimes you don't even have support. You have to reach out to try your luck on certain forums. Confluence is like that. But if you're looking at only textual content, or even if it is video content, right? If you're looking at, okay, how effective is my content, then I would look at findability as a metric. Are they able to find information quickly? I would also look at discoverability. Are they able to stumble upon information even if they were not looking for it. See, now we have a lot of content, and if you look at it, it's always that you have like 1,000 pages, but it's mostly the like 200 pages which are read, right? What about those remaining 800 pages? Does it mean that that information is not important, or could it mean that your users just don't know that it exists? See, what is the content that you will find? Content that you find is, how do you find it? You use a keyword, right? So that means you have to know what you need to search for. If you don't know, you're not going to find it. So your ability to put in information even when the user is not looking for it at the point of need, right? They're able to discover functionality. They're able to get inspired by the way that you are using your product, right? Then another metric that I look at is bounce rate, right? When we look at, what are these search terms that did not get any, any content, right? I'm sure that everyone here looks at that particular metric. What are the search terms or phrases that did not get any content? And that usually, if you've done a good job, that's usually a very, very small list. It's usually mostly some terms that you have only entered while trying to do some testing, or some salesperson is typing some gibberish to show how effective your search is. Yeah. So yeah. So if and as your content increases, that what do you say, that aspect of not finding content will come down drastically. You type in anything, you will get results, right? Because you have 1,000+ articles, something or the other will come in, which means you need to look at the bounce rate. They were able to get results, but did not click on anything.
Yes.
Right. What does that mean? It was not there. What they were looking for was not there. It might have been a keyword that you think they would have got,
Yes.
but they did not click any link. Right. So that's something that you have to track. Then we also do satisfaction metrics. I always tell my writers that you have to be the veterinarian. You are a doctor, right? But unfortunately, the patient cannot speak. Even if you do a survey, the response rate is very, very less, which means you have to observe user behavior. How do they use the product? How do they use your documentation? I mean, we have implemented tools like Hotjar, which gives you screen recordings of how it's like watching somebody browse through your content from over their shoulder without them knowing that you're watching.
Okay.
Right? Where do they pause? Where do they circle? How quickly are they scrolling? Did they, what does the heat map look like? I'm not sure if you know about a heat map. It's basically where does their, this is tracking only the mouse movements, right? There's an F pattern.
Cursor is
Normally,
moving. Yes.
normally on most websites, people tend to navigate in an F pattern. They look at everything on the left. They look one line like this and then one like this. So it's usually an F pattern. So, what are your hot areas? What are your cold areas? What are they not? What do you want to show them, and what are they not seeing? Right? We do a few surveys when we try to find out, okay, are the users understanding information, right? What is the comprehension like? Is the content usable? You have put in so much of effort, created so much documentation, people open it and they are not able to relate it to what they're trying to do, or they are on a page on a product and they don't know how they landed there and how to progress from there. Right? So these are some of the metrics that you can track if you are focused on finding out how your content is doing. But like I mentioned, your objective is not the content, right? Your objective should be, is my user able to use the product efficiently?
Yes.
Very often we get so caught up in what tool to use and how do I publish my document? Is my document looking pretty? And we get caught up in this content piece that we forget that users don't want to come and read your content. That's the last thing that they want to do.
Yes.
It's not at all in their charter of things. They just want to use your product, right? How are you enabling that? And how can we measure that? Now we are actually experimenting about, okay, how do we connect? Somebody came to my article, read it, and then went to a product and did something. How do we connect that? Right? We have many metrics which say, so many page views is directly equal to so many support calls less. That I would not agree with that. Some users, they would go to support and check even if they did not have support, right? So
Yeah.
that's not a very accurate reduction in call volume and accurate value for your thing. Can you actually tell me, these are the 6 articles that we published last month, and this is how much of usage we got because we published this, right? We should be able to build these correlations. Yeah, I think I took more time. Sorry.
No, yeah. I think they were valuable insights, Nibu, using a proper keyword while searching, taking a note of all these things will definitely help in measuring the metrics. Yeah. Thanks for the valuable insights, Nibu. Uh, Moving on, let's move on to our next panelist, Anu Singh. Anu, what process and tools do you employ to measure the quality of the docs?
I would echo some of what Neevu just said, the intent, the business goals, what you have as an organization, and how well we are aligning documentation to those business goals and overall client experience. Because at the end of the day, documentation is all about enabling clients and helping them accomplish a task and achieve success.
Yes.
So it could be the amount or the budget that you have, because if you're buying tools, it's directly proportional to your power to convince your management, as well as getting all the approvals to get the budget approved and deploy the tools and use that. So that is one aspect of it. However, if we have to use, and these are some of the things that my organization is already using, that processes is again defined, because part of some of the teams are working in following agile methodology. So it has to be process like. However, just to ensure that documentation, standard quality, everything is consistent, we have content audits in place. We go for peer reviews, we go for editorial review, and we leverage some of the technology that's available to us, automated grammar and spelling check, language check. You have acrolinks and a couple of other things. Then having version control uh, in place, that what we sent out as build 1.1.1, and then what went next, and has anything changed, from the uh, uh, previously published document, or whatever we have, the number of knowledge articles we have created, that again is aligned and directly proportional to how well people are, or our users are, our clients are using information, consuming it.
Yes.
And incorporating user feedback, which means we have the information out there, were they able to consume it successfully, where where they made a decision using the information they received. It's like they needed a port number, did they find it in time,
Yes.
or they struggled, where to find page 46 or step number 28, or it's right there in front.
Yes.
So those are some of the things that you have to bring in, you have to consider, you have to have in place with respect to processes. And then tools again, do what you want to measure as a business. We measure number of support calls or the mean time to resolution. So again, who opened the knowledge article, or how many knowledge articles we created, or did did anybody read the document or information available to them. And then again they ended up creating a support ticket. So those are processes as well as tools. Precisely, CMS is what we have in place now. We also have a user feedback mechanism, which is in-house,
Okay.
and include it mostly in our help files, the HTML5 version. So you like the page, was it helpful, that kind of stuff. And then we have analytics in place, Zoom in and Google as well. So where we have all that Nibu summarized, maximum number of fit, where the bounce rate is high, how much time a user is spending. And again, because we also have training classes in place, so who attended the training and the effectiveness of that, they attended the training, and for the same feature or same function, they came back to documentation or they searched for knowledge, and they ended up creating a ticket. So all that coming in, bringing together, form
Yeah.
part of process as well as leveraging the tools.
Yeah,
So
based on this, Anu, how do you integrate feedback loops or user input into the documentation process to ensure as ongoing improvement?
thank you for asking me that. We have introduced design thinking when it comes to understanding our users. It's like I have personally done couple of client observation. We go, we watch it. I belong to a fintech, so all that's happening in a day's work. Personal biases, prejudices, like the way we go to give our exams, like Bhagwan, take care of it. All the easy questions. So our I mean, do we have those kind of or those people as our consumers, or as our information users? Do we have are we providing them, supporting them? So client observation, just observing and clarifying things where they reach out to a colleague instead of looking for help, or where they have their own personal notes, like this is going to work, the kind of notes that we take. So do they refer to that? So that is one thing that we have. And uh, all these support tickets, the analysis, we actually, I do it, we follow DMAC, coming from that Six Sigma concept. We are defining top ticketed item, analyze where we can make any change or influence, or do anything with information that could reduce or bring down the number of support tickets, or make it easy for our users. So that is in place, and then those observation is what we take back to the documentation team, that hey, these are the observation, this is where like 48% uh is it, this is the top ticketed item, and 48% users struggled here. So is there anything that we can do? Can we have a training video built? So that kind of thing. And then accessibility is again one thing that's important when it comes to bringing DEI that we all talk about. So are we making all the information or everything available, and then taking their feedback? Were they able to actually use the alt text, or was it used at all? Did they visit anything that we the audio file, or something that is like all readability aspects taken care of?
Yeah.
Well, so those are some of the things that we
Uh,
do, and
Yes, as you
recommend.
mentioned, all text is something like, these are some of the mandatory things we should have to keep in mind while documenting. I think these are some valuable inputs, like probably we'll love to incorporate these feedbacks. Thanks for these insights, Anu. And moving to our next panelist, we have Ashish. Ashish, what are some common challenges faced when measuring documentation effectiveness, and how do you address them?
Ashish, you're on mute. Can you unmute?
Right. Thank you. Hey, over the years, I've felt like two biggest challenges that I have faced when it comes to doc quality. One is, and this is going to be a hot potato, we have many a times one-sided metrics, which are very internal to doc teams. And they may or may not be directly tied or do not have a one-to-one mapping with the business metrics that the organization has. That's a huge challenge. We can do metrics, all right. We are smart people. But then how does the leadership understand those? So that bridge, I have seen that many doc teams do not cross, unfortunately. The second challenge that I've seen is a lack of telemetry, like pure lack of telemetry. I don't have the data that I want to make a meaningful proposition or an assumption or a conclusion about my doc quality. So the reason I'm gonna delve deep, like on the two items that you asked me to share, these are my two topmost worries when I do doc quality in any project or any firm. The challenge for the first one, the reason for the first one, which is one-sided matrix, is that we as we as writers, we define what is quality, but we don't always consult with the business and the customer success stakeholders. We ought to have a growth mindset, and also at times, like, let go of some of the thoughts we have and relearn the new information that's coming in to understand what does documentation quality mean for the organization as a whole, for the business as a whole. And it's easier than ever to be trapped in the matrix that we measure. In the other words, that, like, what I'm saying is, like, it's very easy to get trapped with the matrix. We should be trapped is the wrong word. We should be enchanted by what the customers want. So it's, in other words, we should serve the customer and not the matrix. And the second item that I raised was lack of telemetry. Like, it's possible there are small and big organizations, there are different types of teams, there are different types of leaderships with different types of ideas of sponsorship, with different ideas of how the leadership wants to spend their money, and that's all fine. But given the whole spectrum of the entire industry beyond IT domain, like, there are various methods to measure which may or may not exist. We may want certain methods to exist, but the telemetry may not be there, and that's fine. It could be a lack of instrumentation that doesn't exist. It could be the lack of nobody talking with the user experience research team for signals. Like, product managers are not asking about documentation, about content. Doc writers and doc teams are not asking about user researchers about that. So kind of like, lack of signals. It could be also a lack of sponsorship, like I just said, from the leadership, that they may not want to fund, or they may not have the reason to, or the willingness, or even the economic crunch may be there given the current markets. They may not have an open hand, or the willingness, or the understanding, or the insights on why to fund people and systems to build telemetry. It could, at the end of the day, if everything is there, it could also be, and I've seen that many a times, it could be a writer's reluctance to go probe the system for what telemetry exists, to go find, develop an understanding or a shared understanding between across various business holders on what are the methods that are available to track telemetry, what is the data that's coming in. So that's kind of the reasons there.
Yes. I see Nibu has raised his hand. Nibu, do you have something to say?
Yeah, a couple of points, right? So when we say quality, I used to work in an organization where we had a separate quality team for documentation, and their only work was to find fault. Okay,
Okay.
they used to raise a Sev 1, Sev 2, Sev 3 for each thing. No, but my problem with that was you're looking at only instances where I've dropped the ball. That's not quality, right? You're not looking at
Right.
how long I ran with the ball, how long did I hold the ball, right? That's a very one-sided and very demotivating metric to use, right? There was one more thing, yeah. One of our VPs again in a previous organization, right? She bought in a sense of ownership simply by adding the author's picture to that article. They would never push out anything that had their picture on it, right? The small little spelling mistakes and typos and all of that came down drastically, right? So how do you bring in accountability? This is something that we are asking for from our vendor. We use Document 360, by the way. So how do you help us measure? How do you help us in our metrics? How do you help us measure what matters, right? We have to be able to build in these metrics, and you as a vendor should understand what matters to me as a customer, what matters to me, what do I want to measure, right? I think we need to have these discussions with tool providers so that you're not just going on creating content, right? They are not just finding different ways to present data reuse. The very concept of reuse, after a certain point, it becomes so generic, right? Everybody is trying to reuse content. You made the content so generic that it's basically become useless, because why the author is so focused on where all can I use this, where all can I use this. He's not at all looking at,
I
have I
totally
created
agree with
something that is useful? Did it meet its intent again? Right? Yeah, those are two things that I wanted to mention.
it's incredible to hear your diverse perspective, folks. I must say, like,
Amazing.
these are some valuable insights from our panelists. Okay, let's lighten up the discussion a little. Up next, we have an open question to the panelists as well as the audience. On a lighter note, like, if you weren't a technical writer, what profession do you think you would be in right now? Anybody from the panelists or audience can answer this question. Yeah, go ahead, Ashish.
Hey, I know what I've been doing, which I definitely won't be doing for another 10, 20 years. But hey, that's a very strong thought in the mind. Who knows where life takes us? I'd be living in the foothills
Okay.
and trekking in the Himalayas.
As you mentioned already, you are
Uh,
techie, so this is
right.
not surprising.
But at the same time, I will be holding at least a basic contractual job writing some docs for somebody which pays the bill. Like, let's face it, the bills have to be paid.
Yes, yes.
So I want to like strike a balance between like being a full-time person versus a part-time person, and throwing myself in the mix here. Like, my retirement plan is to be a contractual worker, a writer. Uh,
We
so
can,
good at it that it not
we
just pays
can
the
never,
bill, but
yes.
also funds the funds the travels and the lifestyles.
We can never take out a technical writer from you, Ashish. You are born for this, I guess.
I
Yeah.
started writing before I graduated, so
Yes.
I decided like back in college that I
Yes.
want to stick with tech docs. So
Okay. Okay.
that's there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's have another question on this. Like, what's the most exciting or challenging aspect of your work that keeps you motivated every day? Anybody from the panelist or audience would like to answer this?
I would like to.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
go ahead.
I did not raise my hand. Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
uh, I lost the trail of my thought. The most challenging aspect, I would say, that continues to motivate me is what and how I can reinforce that doc is valuable. It is important to everybody, not just the doc team, and finding that foothold across all the oceans is that keeps me motivated.
That that's great. That's great to hear, Anu. Anybody would like to answer to this question? I
Um,
saw Ashish.
I think finding new ways to measure our impact,
Yes,
right? So
yes.
that is always an ever pressing challenge, uh, because we actually add a lot of value, but we are not able to show it to the extent that we would like to express it, right? And the other thing is, how do I bring even my folks are very shy, right? I really like this entire exercise of getting people together. I was talking to another person on a group. I thinking that maybe every quarter once we should just get a few teams together and talk online, right? Uh, yeah, so different ways to um, improve the value that we already bring and to articulate that value, I would say. Yeah.
I think that's the main reason we have organized this TalkX Nibu, like gathering everyone and having a discussion, a panel discussion over this. So yeah, thanks for your valuable insight. So yeah, now let's jump on to the next set of questions. This is open to all the panelists. So yeah, can you share a specific instance where user feedback significantly influenced improvements in documentation quality? Like any particular feedback from the user which has improved the documentation quality?
Yeah, I can take that. It was mostly an internal feedback. So we when we do a survey, we do two surveys. We do it to our internal folks, which is basically a support, success managers, sales engineers, and one of the earliest feedback that we got was, very often, see, there is a configuration part that the customer cannot do themselves. They have to reach out to a support or solution engineer. So in our content, we used to tell them, okay, this is what you can do. Now to configure, to go further, or you want to get this done, contact support. Now the support person is the feedback to us was, hello, I am support. What do I do? Right? And this content was there in Confluence, but that they have access to, but there is no connection. Right? So
Okay.
what we did was, we started to link this contact support in a way that it would be seen only by internal users.
Okay.
So when external users saw, it was still contact support, they would contact support. If it was internal user, they would see contact support. When they hovered over it, it will show them the Confluence link on how to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Nibu. Ashish or Anu, you have something to say about this? Like any specific instance where user feedback significantly influenced?
I would like to share, and this is way back in 2016. Um, there was an escalation for doc, and that was first ever in my life that a big organization who was one of our clients, they came back to us with they were using some 400-page PDF and in 2016 for configuration, installation, and all that, and the product was really complex. They came back to us, and there were a series of conversation with all the leadership and the doc team, and all the feedback that we got and the conversations and discussions that happened. We ended up implementing principles of minimalism to almost all the documentation. Uh, One of the biggest thing that we did, and we still boast about it, we reduced some 488 pages to 96-page document for configuration and installation, and that was a big achievement. And since then we are applying principles of minimalism to all our documentation and anything that is
I would
used.
like to ask this, Anu, like, how did you convert that 400 PDF to 98? Like, what was the main motto behind it? Like, how did the content got reduced so much? Like,
It was a couple of things, at times I would say categorizing what's essential, what's non-essential, what you are like bragging, because we are writing good to know kind of information, and then jargon. So you can simply remove jargon. If somebody is using, if an organization is using, or the product is in use for 15 years, we do not have to write all the details. It's like you can cut down on the overview part, and then establishing link, jumping from one page, reducing the duplicate work, rather removing, uh,
yes.
you know removing all the technical that we do have, technical that we do not remove, we just keep on writing. So going back to the obsolete information, removing everything. So it was a kind of overhauling of all the documentation. That one guide, that was the beginning, and then replicating the process, and we improved, and then things improved. So it was more of chunking the information, establishing the links, so that you do not have to read it everything. If you need to read it, you can read it, otherwise you can skip and move on. So those are, I can say, immediate things I can share, and I can think more because it's 2016. So there were definitely other things as well, the number of okay, those images, like click
Yes.
okay and then the image, click cancel and the image.
Okay.
So all those aspects, all some of those things we got rid of. So it was
Yeah.
was
Lucky we have GIFs and videos now to accommodate them in a single page. So yeah, that really helps. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks, Anu. I think okay. Now let's have another question. Like, how do you measure the effectiveness of technical documentation within your respective organizations? Uh, Ashish, Nibu, or Anu, like, how do you measure the documentation with your respective organizations?
I can go there. Uh, this is from my past decade of experience about not just measuring, but also conveying the measure of the effective documentation. Because measuring is up to me or my team, but conveying is something that gets conveyed to the wider organization, which is like, probably 5 different functions, many dotted rows, definitely solid line and dotted line management, and then everybody has a different thing to care about. So for example, I like take an example of like a few things that we as doc team know what to measure. We know it's important and we do measure it, and that's all fine. For example, we do SEO audits, we do UX testing. Part of the UX testing is a very crude A/B testing. We do audits by not just by SEO folks or ourselves from SEO perspective, but we also, from an accuracy point of view and comprehensive point of view, we send it out to engineering to do an audit of the content, saying, hey, what's missing, what's incorrect. We do peer review, we do use grammar tools, and everything is fine, but that is all internal to the doc teams. What's external to the doc teams, and this is where I want to emphasize that this is something which always has been a challenge for me, that my leadership, because there is a senior doc manager, there is a director of doc management, TechCom, and then beyond that, who's there? A marketing director, a product management director, a VP of products, I don't know, a VP of engineering. Like, how do you convince them? They live in a different world. How
Yes.
do you convey that understanding of how important the content is and why so much headcount is required? Why are these parameters the parameters for doc quality? So then we have to do that mapping. It's not going to be one-to-one, but it's going to be many-to-many mapping between whatever I said, like UX testing, SEO audits, accuracy based on engineering audits, comprehensiveness based on customer support audits, peer review and grammar tools based on editorial audits, and all sorts of things. But then the business metrics are like, what's the cost saving for me as a VP? Can your docs reflect calls? What is the sales impact for me as a VP of sales?
Yes.
What is the lead generation you are doing? Are you sending people to the trial software? Or are you sending people are you convincing people with techno business language to not just say how to procedures, but also you are saying the benefit of the business to them, so that they are compelled to click on the product marketing page link, and that's a lead generation. Are you doing enough from a customer support, or rather a marketing perspective or a product management perspective? Are you doing enough? Are you helping me do user retention by and improving my NPS scores by doing by ensuring smooth usage? Is your content enabling my users to use the product the way it is intended to be used? And from a sales perspective again, and even from product management perspective, or for everybody, like CEO and board of directors perspective, like, are you helping me generate enough revenue
Yes.
by upselling and side selling the product? Do you have very nice inserts? For example, one way to do it is, do you have nice inserts in your documentation about premium features, about end user, developer, admin persona across the board, so that everybody ties together, and then everybody uses it, and that leads to revenue growth because user get the product gets used, or
Yes.
or various things. It can lead, like, there can be thousand different things we can do.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about the ways to do it. I'm talking about like, senior management's or leadership's point of view about how are you impacting my revenue growth? Are you impacting my user retention? How are your docs impacting my sales? How are your docs impacting my cost saving as a support center? How are your docs impacting my launch and go to market strategy? Because once the one of the marketing blogs are done, everybody at the bottom of it links back. Once the conference presentations from the stages are done, everybody backlinks to the doc saying, this is how you use it. Hey,
Yes.
customers, we are building the hype. Please go use it. Please
Yes.
buy these licenses.
Yes.
Please get into this ecosystem. Please get into the fold. But then how do you use it? Here is the doc on how
Okay.
to use it. So
Yes.
are we doing enough on that? I think that's something that's like it answers two questions actually. Like how do we improve? How do we actually not improve? How do we make sure that the metrics that we have
Yes.
they are meaningful and they tie into the bigger matrix? That's one question it answers. And the other question I think it answers is how do we, you know, become successful? How do we, be successful as writers for the business? How do we make sure our readers of our docs, the admins or the developers or the end users, like how are they successful so that their management justifies the cost of our software? Because I'm yet to see where a developer or an end user or an admin has paid the cost of the business software or enterprise software. I've always worked in the enterprise side of things, and the business decision maker who funds millions of dollars for Microsoft software and Adobe software, which is primarily where I've worked for last 15 years,
Yes.
is like they don't use the software, somebody else does.
Yes.
And the user, be it admin or developer or end user, they don't pay the bills. A VP pays the bills. So how does the company internal folks, and how do we as doc writers of the vendor software, how do we and that's the parameter of quality, I think. Like, what does quality mean to a VP who is paying millions of dollars for our software? What does quality mean to a VP of my own firm who is paying thousands of dollars in salaries for me and my team? What does quality mean to somebody who is eventually going to use my software? What does quality mean? Even sometimes it's going to be very internal. Like, what does quality mean to all of us internal folks who are building that software? Engineer is coding it, a writer is authoring it, a content designer is doing the UX strings. Everybody is doing this thing. Like, everybody has to justify their not everybody has to justify, the business has to justify
Yes.
everybody's position in the team.
Yes.
And if we don't get like that whole story tied together in terms of user experience, what does it mean for the end users? What is the revenue this product is bringing in, partly thanks to the talks? Then I think we are all at a loss.
I totally agree with you, Ashish. It's at the end of the day, business is gonna they are gonna take care of these things. So yeah, uh, thanks for
Right,
sharing.
Manish, can I like take 1 more minute to very quickly like say
Sure,
two
sure,
things
sure.
about the results
Yes,
of various cross-functional initiatives, which has been a fantastic doc story for us that I strive for still and that I love. Yeah. So
please go ahead.
so recently, like a year ago, for Microsoft Teams, I went in and I dug out 3 years worth of verbatim feedback, which predated before my time at Microsoft. And then I went in to hear all sorts of forum requests, verbatim feedback left, and various complaints that people had, which they raised even to the customer facing roles, which is not just customer support, it is customer facing PMs, customer facing support, it is escalation teams, it is talk feedback, all sorts of, we all know the paraphernalia there. And then that took approximately like a whole year to fix for me. But then this is, one of the examples where we can make a huge dent for the business. Uh, for the ducks that I own, the CSAT went up from being only 11% positive to being 78% positive. So
That's a great
that's a
thing.
flip.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
90 to 10 percentage negative to positive. It
Yes.
became 80, almost 80 to 20% being positive to negative. And that's only because I just gave customers what they asked for. And that's like in retrospective, hindsight being 2020, like I would say, like that's such a stupid thing to do.
Yes.
Like that, not a stupid, that's such a simple thing to do. If we only heard our customers through various channels, or if
Yes.
we heard our product managers or our marketing folks from various channels, what do our customers want? So that's one. The other thing that was like before COVID, about 5 years ago, we did was again the same thing. We had a whole project about abandoning. It was actually a relearning thing, a growth mindset thing for us. I, as a doc team, we said that I am going to drop everything I know about the product. I'm going
Yes.
to sit back and I will let customer support, product managers, marketing team talk about it. I'm going to exclude writers. I'm going to exclude editors. I'm going to exclude doc managers. Everybody gets kicked out, not invited to the meeting. Stay out.
Yes.
We are creating an echo chamber here. I don't want it. I'm going to experiment. And that experiment led to a 1% reduction in the call volume of $1 billion software, the software which had $1 billion in revenue, and the call volume was not small. The call volume went by a few hundred calls per quarter.
That's a
Each call costed
huge.
something like $20 to $25
Yes.
per call. So
Thanks. Thanks for sharing your
that was
thoughts, Ashish. Thank you. Nibu, you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing. So one thing that we do very differently at WhatFix is we listen to sales calls. We listen to customer support calls. They are all recorded. There's a software called Chorus that gets in like a participant, records everything and transcribes it. Right. So this is a very good way to understand how people, even before they become a customer, what kind of questions do they have, right? How do they perceive your product? And as a customer, what are the questions that they are asking? Uh, how are we? How is the training department? That's a different team altogether. They don't have any tie-up with product. How are they introducing the product? What are they saying about documentation? Are they using documentation on the tool? Now, if you say that you want your users to use documentation, you have to build that behavior in your internal teams, right? So let's say a customer is on a call with the sales folks. The customer asks a question. Is the sales folk going to support and teaching that behavior? Right. Ours is a very high touch model. That means it's so easy to pick up the phone and just talk to your customer success manager and get it resolved. Right. In that, there are people who will still go and search on support on our documentation site to get an answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Nibu. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your insights. So I think due to time constraints, we have to end it here. So I would like to thank each and everyone for attending this show. Thanks to our esteemed panelists for your valuable insights, and a big thank you to our audience as well for joining in. I think stay tuned for our next episode of TalkX, where we'll be discussing about tech writing and tech writing in finance domain. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Thank you so much for joining, folks. But can we just stay back for a quick picture?
Yeah, sure. Please,
Uh,
everyone.
Shipana. Okay. Smile. Say quality.
quality.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Do share the social media threads. I'm going to post it maybe on Monday or Tuesday. Please do share it with all your folks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.